attention to the destruction of the 3 World Trade Center towers in New York City on September 11th, 2001, and a whole lot more. This is 9/11 Free Fall. Hello, everyone. This is Andy Steele, back again for another show. The guest today is Ted Walter. We'll be talking about 9/11 activism, the Rethink 9/11 campaign, and the latest news in the fight to expose the fact that the Twin Towers and Building 7 were brought down in a pre-planned controlled demolition on 9/11. So stay tuned. We'll be getting to that in just a moment. My goodness, what a week, folks. No doubt, as the temperature is heating up this summer season, the national situation is heating up too. And people are at each other's throats over various issues, and the media is doing everything it can to keep us distracted and divided, and our minds off of the real issues which we should all be united on. And of course, the foremost issue of importance to America right now still is the scientific evidence that disproves the government's official story about what destroyed the buildings in New York on 9/11. And that's what this show is about. And of course, this issue is important because, one, Americans died that day, nearly 3,000 of them, and two, because of all the after effects of 9/11, the quote-unquote post-9/11 world, the red pen that was taken to the Constitution, the attacks on our rights, and the media exposing itself for what it is, as a mouthpiece designed to cover the tracks on issues like this and to keep us drowning in a sea of confusion. Okay, folks, the battle for 9/11 truth is a battle for the future of America, and we are not giving up. And you know that expression from my cold, dead hands? Well, in this case, it's our cold, dead tongues. All right, we will keep on shining a light on Building 7 for as long as we can, and we will insert it into the debate as much as possible, even and especially when the gatekeepers in the media, the customer service reps who are pacifying the public, when they try to tell us to be silent. All right, we are not going anywhere. The truth is not going anywhere, and this crime will be laid bare for all to see. And folks, it is so important to speak out and do whatever it takes to educate the public about what really happened to those buildings in New York. And of course, the best way to do that is to help the organization that has been leading the charge when it comes to the science and hard evidence that exposes this big lie. And I'm talking about architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. And how you want to help out is up to you. All right, you can show the movies Blueprint for Truth and 9/11 Explosive Evidence, Experts Speak Out, to your friends, to your family. You can hold screenings in public places. You can purchase the DVDs and hand them out. Or you can volunteer. And if you're already an activist for 9/11 Truth, speaking out on his own, then this should be the next obvious step for you. All right, to sign up and help AE 9/11 Truth, all you need to do is fill out the volunteer form on the webpage. After you click the volunteer tab on the right-hand side of the screen, you do that at ae911truth.org, and then you send it in. All right, someone will get in touch with you, and the process will happen. And you'll be a part of one of the most important efforts in American history. So if you have time whatsoever, any time whatsoever, then please give it. All right, go to ae911truth.org. Right now, there is something you can do to help out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, some quick 9/11 related news. We have this from The Guardian on July the 18th. World Trade Center owners fail in bid to claim more damages from airlines. Larry Silverstein, who, if you don't know who he was the owner of the Twin Towers. He was suing the airlines involved in the September 11th event, and apparently what he got already wasn't enough for him, hence this lawsuit. So the article reads, the owners of the World Trade Center cannot demand billions of dollars more in insurance money for the destruction caused by the September 11th attacks, a federal judge decided on Thursday. Judge Alvin Hellerstein ruled after hearing testimony by economic experts for the Trade Center owners and for the airlines linked to the planes that were hijacked in the attacks. The non-jury trial was held to decide whether the owners could collect more than the nearly $5 billion they've already received towards reconstruction. In a ruling against developer Larry Silverstein and World Trade Center Properties, Hellerstein cited state laws that bar windfalls and double recovery on the same loss. So no go for Larry. He'll have to settle for what he's got. So now here's another story, and it's a little dated right now. We're at the end of July here, and this was from mid-June, but it's worth noting, and this shows just how important outreach in general is, and where the efforts of what we do here in the movement sprout. The headline is, Seahawks coach peppered 4-star general with 9/11 conspiracy questions. And this article talks about how an NFL coach was hosting a retired 4-star general at the Seahawks facility last spring, and he started asking the general about 9/11 and whether it, and this is what's quoted from the article, whether it had been planned or faked by the government. Now, this article doesn't really go into a lot of detail about what was discussed between the two people or whether the coach cited the controlled demolition evidence or other elements of 9/11 that people question. But I wanted to point this out because these are the kind of conversations that are taking place all over America with people in the military and government. And this one was mentioned in the papers because the coach here is a famous person. But think about the conversations that aren't making it into the papers. Think about the minds you reach and where the information you spread ultimately goes. All right, you pique the interest of the right people, you wake them up, you have no idea who they are or who their friends are. And no doubt, military and police are the prime groups of people we need to be focusing on because they are ultimately the enforcers of the quote-unquote post-9/11 world. And, of course, this article tries to marginalize the issue itself and make it seem odd that this football coach would be concerned about what really happened on 9/11 to begin with. That's the corporate media's job, to quarantine this topic and make sure nobody stops really to look at it. But this is why calling into TV and radio shows is so important, all right? You get those words out there. Building 7, explosives, just drilling it into the public's awareness, and you do that enough times, you will prompt people to look into it further. All right, they'll associate that term, Building 7, with the word explosives. And they properly should because the explosives were used to bring it down. And don't let this bought and paid for media sculpt the narrative and define what is and what isn't reasonable to talk about. All right, ultimately, you have more power just by using your sheer will and not backing down. And look at the effects. I mean, people are questioning. People don't trust their government or their corporate media anymore, and they shouldn't. So this is a good thing, but we got to keep pushing. And the article also says that Pete Carroll, that's the Seahawks coach, didn't stop at 9/11. He had lots of questions about the role of the military today. So this is why focusing on this topic is so important, because it touches so many other areas of the post-9/11 world that people are concerned about, like that, and the loss of our civil liberties, etc. This is why we focus on it here. Now, and it's funny, too, this involves the NFL, because if you remember, Rashard Mendenhall of the Pittsburgh Steelers was dragged through the mud in 2011 for questioning what destroyed the Twin Towers on 9/11, and also for asking aloud on his Twitter account whether celebrating was an appropriate response when they announced the alleged bin Laden kill back then. And I don't believe I've talked that much on the show about that because that all happened before the show started, but you can Google my articles that I wrote at the time. They're called, one's called The Corporate State's Public Image Execution of Rashard Mendenhall, and the other one's titled Writers Attacking Rashard Mendenhall Invoke Neurotic Emotion and Lies Showing They Know Nothing About 9/11. And those were written at the time this was going on, and yes, that last article has a pretty loaded title, I'll admit, but I did that on purpose because the site I was writing for was part of the Google News feed, and I wanted writers who were Googling themselves to see that and get called to the carpet. And if you research this, notice how the tone is different in the coverage of Pete Carroll compared to Rashard Mendenhall. How it's different now than it was then. And right now it doesn't have that phony outrage tone to it, like you were hearing a couple of years ago. All right, I'm not saying it's completely gone, but more people are questioning, and as more and more people can speak out, the mass peer pressure effect lessens. It starts to fade away, kind of like a boogeyman in the closet in the kid's imagination. And that's really all it is. They're just using your own fears against you, your fear of public backlash, of being cast out from your peers. And when you don't care about that, when you realize that more and more people are questioning this, they really lose their power. So that's, again, another reason why you need to be speaking out. Okay, what we're going to do now is what we do every week. We're going to take 10 seconds of silence to remember the victims of September 11th and their families and everyone who has died in the wars which followed 9/11. We're going to do that now. Okay. Okay, and that is 10 seconds. My guest this week is Ted Walter. Ted is the founder of the New York City Coalition for Accountability Now, or otherwise known as NYC CAN. And this is an organization he started in 2009 with a group of 9/11 family members to advance the New York City ballot initiative for an independent commission to reinvestigate the 9/11 attacks. He has since served as the manager of Remember Building 7. That was a TV advertising campaign exposing New Yorkers to the collapse of World Trade Center Building 7. And he is now co-campaign manager for the ReThink911 campaign. Ted also holds a master's degree in public policy from UC Berkeley and is a budget analyst for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. Ted, welcome to 9/11 Freefall.
Thanks for having me on the show, Andy.
Now, this is your first time on the show, and obviously from your bio, 9/11 Truth has played a major part of your life over the past 11 years here. Tell our audience a little more about yourself and how you woke up to the 9/11 controlled demolition evidence.
Well, absolutely. I actually moved to New York City in late August 2001 to start undergraduate program at NYU. And so 9/11 was really part of my introduction to New York City, and it really had a big impact on me at that time. And I remember thinking on that day, I didn't detect it right away, but I was really confused, especially that the third plane managed to get to the Pentagon. I figured by 45 minutes or an hour after the Twin Towers were hit that they would have had more defenses around Washington, D.C. And I was genuinely confused by that. And I was also pretty confused, looking at footage of the building's collapse. I just couldn't. I didn't disbelieve it, but I was amazed that that's how buildings look when they collapse. There was definitely something very funny going on. And throughout the years, I heard revelations. I heard about Colleen Rowley in 2002 and the whole issue with the 20th hijacker and in Minneapolis. I heard about various things that made me question it. But I really started doing research in 2006. People just started sending me information, and I think that was a big time for the 9/11 Truth Movement. There was a huge surge in awareness and in terms of the number of people that were educated. I think one of the first things I did was I read Stephen Jones's paper. I also watched a fantastic presentation by Kevin Ryan, A New Standard for Deception, which he gave at a conference in Chicago on June 4th in 2006. And I think it was Kevin Ryan's presentation in particular that really sealed it for me after a couple weeks of research. And some people when they really learn about it and they get it, it does change their life in a way. A lot of people learn about it and they care about it, but they don't start devoting much of their life and their energies to it. But a lot of us do, and I'm one of those people. And so I've been working on this issue intensively for six or so years, doing various things. And today, 6-7 years later, I'm working on the Rethink911 campaign, and I think that this campaign is uniquely poised to have a massive impact, far greater than anything that we've achieved thus far. Of course, all the work that we've done over the years has led us to this point. But we are now on the precipice of something that I think will be very powerful, and I'm really looking forward to this September.
Absolutely. Now, we've talked about Rethink911 many times on this show, so anybody who's a fan of this show or listens to it on a regular basis knows exactly what we're talking about. But we may have new listeners, new people that may have no idea what this issue is about, what the show is about. They're just kind of waking up to this and saying, hey, these guys, they think it was a controlled demolition. So tell our audience, what is Rethink911 and what is it going to entail this September?
Rethink911 is a global advertising and grassroots action campaign. The organization, as you mentioned, that I've been working with, Remember Building 7, we got together with architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, and have committed ourselves to fundraising and to raising over $200,000 over the last few months and heading into September. And we're going to use that money to place ads in 11 cities. And we've already made agreements for 9 out of 11 of those cities, and we're going to seal up the other agreements soon. And the spearhead of this campaign is a massive 54-foot tall billboard that will be in the heart of Times Square that will say to, roughly 1 million people that walk through that space every day, did you know a third tower fell on 9/11? This ad campaign, a lot of work has gone into making sure that we have the right message that will really open people up and raise awareness this September. And one of the things that we learned from doing a lot of testing with some various advertising concepts is that the singular thing that opens people up the most to learning the new information about 9/11 is the fact that a third building fell on 9/11. A vast majority of the U.S. public and the world doesn't know that a third tower fell on 9/11. And so for people who have sort of have it fixed in their minds what they think happened on 9/11, it's hard to break through, but as soon as you show them something that they didn't know happened, like at all, something they didn't know anything about, it starts to become loose in their mind, and they realize, well, maybe there's something more to this than what I thought. And then when they actually see footage of the building collapse, the vast majority of people that see it instinctively know that it's a controlled demolition. You just can't explain the collapse any other way. It's an instinctive thing for most people. And we believe that if awareness really spreads that there was a third building that came down on 9/11, and it gains lots of media attention, which we expect to do, particularly this billboard in Times Square, and then people see footage of it on a large scale, we think that's a very quick path to things unraveling for the official story of 9/11. We really think that it is the fact that people have not seen footage of Building 7 and people are not aware of it, that is really, what the official story, the thread that the official story is hanging by, and that it's going to fall as more people become aware of this third building.
Exactly, and that's why I'm focusing on this issue on this show, mainly with so much going on in the world. This is why Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth does what it does, because, again, seeing is believing. And once you show that, just like you said, once you show that to a person, and once they look at all of the evidence and they use their own common sense and they apply their own reasoning abilities, they realize it had to be a controlled demolition. There's just no way. And then when you actually kind of step back, you rewind from that and you say, well, okay, how long does it take to set up something like that? Well, it takes months. You can't do that in a morning with the Twin Tower event taking place next door. You can't do that just in one morning. So if you did it months ahead of time, buildings aren't rigged to just be pulled. They're not rigged with explosives just in case you need to do it someday, folks. All right, once you realize that, and you realize that, they must have known the event was going to happen. Oh, then the wheels start spinning, and people realize that there's something terribly wrong here. And then it's just getting past the emotional wall. This is why this campaign is so necessary, and I commend you guys for thinking of it and doing this legwork. And I want to ask about this billboard. I mean, I know it's going to happen. I'm going to be there with all of you folks in New York City on September 11th. I've already got it planned out here. But can you share with our audience, what kind of work goes into getting something like that done? Obviously, I imagine it must have been a Herculean task just to figure out the logistics of that and convincing whoever you need to convince to tackle this controversial subject right in the middle of Times Square.
Yeah, so we're very fortunate to have somebody, an agent who his job is basically going and placing ads for companies and other parties that want to advertise for whatever reason. Usually it's selling products. And this individual actually, when we engaged him, he very quickly, it was new to him, and he suddenly realized it pretty quickly and has been very devoted to working with us and for us to find us the best advertising opportunities in the country and in the world. And we don't have unlimited funds. We're trying to raise $225,000, and right now we're at about $170,000. So we're more than 3/4 of the way there. But we don't have unlimited funds, and so we had to be strategic about what advertising opportunities would have the biggest impact. And we felt that when it came to New York City, that it would be a massive billboard in Times Square, and that it's first of all just purely on the number of impressions, the number of views that it gets per day. It gets almost 1 million impressions per day, and there's just something hugely symbolic about having such a massive ad right there in the heart of Times Square. It's like you're cutting through the wall of deception, and it's really we expect it to sort of have instant media coverage, and we expect thousands of people to come there on the 11th to rally around the billboard. It's actually going to be at 5:20 p.m., which is the time that World Trade Center Building 7 collapsed. There's going to be a rally there at 5:20 p.m. on September 11th this year to bring even more attention to the billboard. But it exactly goes to what you were speaking about before, about the fact that there are thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of conversations happening every day about 9/11. We happen to hear about Pete Carroll and the Seahawks coach talking to the 4-star general, but when you look at what, the tens of thousands of conversations that are like that are happening every day, it's going to be multiplied into the millions this September. So it's just going to be a huge blast of energy and a surge in awareness of what happened on 9/11.
I think it also serves to kind of normalize the topic. Now, people like yourself and myself, we've been doing this a couple of years, and so, we can casually talk about how the building was brought down in a controlled demolition. We can say it basically like we're saying that the sky is colored blue. I mean, it's a fact. We know it. But for a lot of people, they may be able to acknowledge it, and they may say, "Yeah, I think it was a controlled demolition," and then they move on. They don't really want to think about it beyond that point. They're afraid of talking about it because of obvious implications. And so I think what this is going to do is this is going to serve to put it out there in the public, to make it something that's not so taboo. I mean, a big billboard in the middle of Times Square is not a whisper. It's right out there. It's right out in the open, and it makes it okay for people to acknowledge it. I expect that to come from this entire campaign. It's not going to be exposed in the next day on September 12th after the billboard gets out, but what it will do is it will get people talking, and all those hundreds of thousands of conversations that we were talking about in the beginning of the show are going to multiply into millions of conversations taking place all around the world, in particular in New York City. Again, you talked about strategic planning. That is the best strategic spot of them all because this is where the event took place. And when you do this rally in front at 5:20 p.m. on September 11th, what's going to be included in this rally? Is it just going to be a gathering? Is anyone going to be speaking? That remains to be determined. One way we're considering doing it is to have it be very spontaneous. To see what happens. What happens if you tell thousands of people and you put it out on the website where tens of thousands of people are going to be visiting this website every day in the month of September, show up here at 5:20 p.m. And so we're thinking of being very spontaneous. The other approach which would complement that would be to have some of the foremost spokespeople in the 9/11 truth movement speak. And that of course would include the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, Richard Gage, 9/11 family members such as Bob McIlvaine, celebrities like Daniel Sunjata, Ed Asner, and many others would speak. We're looking for like real spontaneity to it as well, though. We want people to show up with drums. We want people to show up with banners that they made at home, and we want sort of the power of the innate power to take over and not just have it be planned out. In the audience, you're all listening to this right now. I mean, certainly now, if you live on the West Coast, it might be harder for you to get out there. You can create your own Rethink 9/11 event to stand in solidarity with the folks in New York. But if you're in the Northeast, get over to it. Go to it. I understand sometimes you got to work. I mean, sometimes you got to do this and that. But if it's at all possible, take the day off. Get on a bus. Get on a train. You may not want to fly if you don't want to go through the TSA treatment, but there's any number of ways you can get there. And I'm not a big fan of driving in New York City. Just give you some quick travel tips here. But there's subways. It's not hard to maneuver around New York City. And so here we are. We've got this big event happening, and you need to be a part of it. Okay, you need to get your signs ready, and you can make your own signs. And again, just as Ted said a moment ago, it's all about spontaneity. You are creating this movement. The only way that you lose is if you don't participate. So you need to come over and show the support and film it, put it on YouTube, create live streams of it, create your own, be the media that our corporate media is not being, okay? But if it's within a overnight bus travel distance, you should be there. Or hold your own rallies in your own hometowns and send out press releases to your local papers. Are there going to be any kinds of press releases that people can send out to their papers on behalf of the Rethink 911 campaign?
Absolutely, yeah. We're going to provide press releases that people can have, so they can have press conferences and events in their own cities. For the cities where we have stationary advertising, that's definitely a possibility. At this particular juncture, as you said, getting involved, if you don't get involved, it's your loss. At this particular point in time, the goal is to continue raising the funds to get to our target, which is $225,000. And as I just said, we are at $170,000 now, so we're about $50,000 shy of where we need to be 2 weeks from now. And I know that sometimes when you're sitting there, you assume that other people are going to step forward and give the money, and it's all good. The campaign will reach its target. But this is one of those times where we have something truly unprecedented and historic that's about to happen. And so we're really counting on everybody to step forward and give what they can to make this campaign possible, so that we can do the advertising buys in all 11 cities that we've committed to. And right now, until August 1st, we are going to be offering the actual Metro ad that will be featured on the BART subways in San Francisco in September, the actual 21 by 22-inch Metro ad. We are offering that to anyone who's able to donate $50 or more to the campaign. We will mail you a free version of this piece of history, basically. It's a chance for everybody to get their own piece of history, which would basically be a souvenir of their involvement in the campaign. And we're offering that for only $50. So we're hoping that everyone can step forward at this time so that we can reach our target.
Right, and that's actually a good idea, because then somebody can take that ad and put it up in whatever local city that they're from and have that in the town square. And folks, throughout history, they've talked about sacrifice, sacrificing something for charity, for this kind of cause. And now, obviously, right now, you got to work and live, but if you have anything to spare for the cause, what is it? I mean, what do you want to live in? What kind of country do you want to live in? Do you want to live in one that is free? Do you want to live in the pre-9/11 world where things weren't perfect, but at least we didn't have this hanging over us? And it's really not that much of a sacrifice. I mean, again, maybe you can't afford over $50. Well, you give $5 if you have it. Skip a coffee for a day. It's not going to happen unless we make it happen. Look at with C-SPAN. Look at people calling into that program and changing the tone of that entire show just simply by sheer will, by not giving up. And you can do that in your own life too. You can do that in your own activism, and you can do it with your money. And again, if you can only afford $1 to donate, give $1, okay? And it's be going to a good cause. It's going to be going towards what is being described here. Now, what else? And I'm coming up with ideas as we talk here on the air, but what other things can our listeners do to help out in this campaign that hasn't been mentioned already?
Well, as you suggested, doing with the Metro ad that we're offering for $50, putting that up in your local library or, your local coffee shop, you can do, there are lots of other materials that we're going to be offering that people can do to, can purchase or can get to do what I would call guerrilla advertising, which is, getting total saturation of the Rethink 911 message through means other than the advertising itself. So wearing T-shirts, bumper stickers. We've mailed hundreds of bumper stickers now to the people that donated to the campaign thus far, and that's all about spreading the word, on the back of people's cars or on their laptops. And so there's a lot of materials that people can acquire to do that. We're also going to be advancing an initiative where people will be delivering the AE, the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth petition, to their local law enforcement agencies, and various other public authorities in their local jurisdictions. And so, as a lot of people may know, Architects and Engineers is just about to reach 2,000 architect and engineer petition signers. And so that petition is going to be a very, very powerful tool for convincing thousands of people with some authority that this is a real issue, that there are experts who have looked at this carefully and have come to the conclusion that what we saw in 9/11 was a controlled demolition. And so we're hoping that we can get commitments from people in at least 100 cities across the U.S. To deliver the Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth petition to their local authorities.
Exactly, and there's so many actions people can do, and maybe they put it off saying, yeah, I should do that someday, okay? And if you're one of those folks, and it's understandable just given how busy life is, this is the time to do it. This will be the day to do it. And we actually have a letter up at ae911truth.org. It went out to police stations last January, but it's available to you, the listeners out there, to print out and bring to your local police chiefs and sheriffs, okay? You just put their name at the top of it and bring it to them and remind them and say, what are you doing? What are you doing about this? We're going to the cops. We're bringing this to the police. We're calling the police on the perpetrators, whoever committed this crime. And there's resources on ae911truth.org under the police page, police information page, where they can report frauds in the NIST report. It's all listed up there. So you can do that on that day. So you can also not only take advantage of what's being offered specially for the Rethink 9/11 campaign, but what also is being offered anyway. I mean, it's being offered all of the time. This is the time. This is, as I said before, back when this was called Operation Tip the Planet, it's now Rethink 9/11, but it's still the D-Day for 9/11 Truth. It is people all over the world speaking out and storming that beach, that metaphorical beach, for this all-important cause. Do you have anything else to add to that?
I think those are the major actions right now. I think that the month of August is when we will shift, as a campaign, we will shift our focus to the activism and the grassroots actions that people can take in the month of September. So, I would look forward to the opportunity to come on the show again in August with Richard and the other campaign team members to talk more about what people can do in the month of September.
Absolutely. We'll be happy to have you on, and I will definitely see you out there in New York City. And folks, come out. If you want to meet me, I'll be out there. I'll talk to anybody, and maybe we'll see about me possibly getting a live feed. I'd have to get some better technology, but maybe I can even stream a live feed. We'll see about that, and if that's possible. Right out there from Times Square, 9/11 free fall from Times Square. That sounds kind of cool. So anyway, we talked about your past here and things. You're involved with Rethink 9/11 now, but you got a history here with 9/11 Truth and organizing for it. And we've talked before on the show about NYC CAN. But again, there might be first-time listeners here. So can you go over it? What was that about, and how was it pursued, and what happened as a result?
Absolutely. In 2008, that's when I first got involved. There was a ballot initiative that had already started. The initiative would have amended the city charter of New York City to establish a local commission to reinvestigate the 9/11 attacks. And I started helping out, volunteering in 2008. I ended up by the end of 2008 collecting thousands of signatures for the initiative. And the goal originally was to get on the ballot in 2008. We ended up missing the deadline for that, but fortunately in New York City, the petition signatures remain valid for the following year, or they're basically valid indefinitely until you file the petition. And so we kept going in 2009, and we actually, sort of overhauled the initiative somewhat and rebranded it as NYC CAN, and we got a group of 9/11 family members involved to be the spokespeople of the initiative, Bob McIlvaine, Donna Marsh O'Connor, and others. And we actually got to our what we needed to get to in terms of collecting signatures. We reached 80,000 signatures by the middle of the summer in 2009, and we filed our petition. And then the city did what it typically does when people try to do ballot initiatives in New York City. It rejected our petition, saying that the petition was not legally valid, and we had to go to court and try to convince the judge that, in fact, the petition was valid. And like unfortunately, like the 7 initiatives that came before us that went to court, except for one in the 25 years before our initiative, most do not succeed in getting on the ballot and proving that they're legally valid. And that was what happened in this case. But I will say that this is a strategy that we're looking at again. We, from what we did in 2009, we learned some important lessons, and we are, in fact, looking at another ballot initiative in the future. And I would be happy to share more information about that probably in a few months. But yeah, from the ballot initiative in 2009, we continued the work that NYC CAN was doing, and in 2010 we started lobbying the New York City Council directly to get some of the council members to open an investigation into the collapse of World Trade Center Building 7. And so we spoke with many council members. We reached about a quarter of the city council, either speaking to the council members themselves or their staff. And everyone that we spoke with was very receptive and basically convinced by the end of our meetings. We had engineers, architects, family members come and meet with the council members. And, we convinced almost everyone that we spoke with, but it was hard to get them to move as you might expect. But they were definitely listening. And with something like ReThink911, I think that's where, the campaign that we're going to do in September will get some of these people that are in these positions of power to feel a little more comfortable talking about it. As you said, it becomes more normalized. And we started as that campaign evolved, the lobbying of the city council. We've started focusing even more on Building 7, and we eventually started the Building What campaign, which was turned into the Remember Building 7 campaign. And that was all about raising money to put TV ads on the air in New York City. And so, as you can see, that's kind of been my focus ever since the ballot initiative has been how do we reach the public? How do we expose them to Building 7 through sort of advertising and other means? And it's really, it's a strategy that I've believed in for a long time, that Building 7 is the key to waking people up.
Right, and actually you kind of touched on my next question here, because I remember when I talked to Dennis McMahon many moons ago on the show, it was brought up that one of the issues that was raised in court was the notion that, well, this reinvestigate all of 9/11. Well, 9/11 took place in different parts of the country, and that might be out of New York City's jurisdiction. So first, correct me if I'm wrong about that, but if that is the case, then I was going to ask, could you do the same exact thing and just focus it on Building 7?
That's actually exactly what we're looking at. We are looking at another ballot initiative that would amend the city charter to require somebody within the New York City government to conduct an investigation. It may not just be limited to Building 7. It may actually, just by the way the law is, it may actually require an investigation of all 3 buildings, but all the better, But yeah, that's what I'm working on, and I'm working on it with Dennis McMahon, and so it's evolving, and within a few months we can talk more about that.
Exactly. Well, that's a good approach. Very, very awesome, and I wish you guys luck with that. And of course, ReThink911 is at the core of this, because to get people to care about Building 7, to get them past Building What, beyond saying Building What, you got to get them to know about what Building 7 was. You got to get them to watch it. And I already know the answer to this, but for our first-time listeners, where did Building What come from? Where did that name come from?
Yeah, so that derived from when we were in court in 2009 trying to argue that our petition was, in fact, legally valid. Dennis McMahon was making his oral arguments, and he mentioned Building 7, and the judge, in response, said, "Building what?" as if he had never heard of it, which he hadn't. And that was how it was born. We immediately seized on that moment. Everyone just kind of looked at each other, everyone that was sitting in the courtroom. And we're like, wow, this guy who's a judge in New York City, his courtroom is less than a mile away from Building 7, and he hadn't heard of it. So that's how Building a What was born, as an expression and as a campaign.
Exactly. Now, we've got this big campaign going, and it's going to be focused heavily in September on Building 7 and Rethink911 and getting that message out to people. But then there's going to come October and November, and it's going to be post-Rethink campaign time. So, what are you going to consider success from this one action, and then what do the supporters of this movement do to build on that success? Where do we go from Rethink911?
Well, Rethink911 is going to continue to grow. The Rethink911 campaign that's happening in September is literally only the first step. We expect a huge amount of attention to come to the campaign in September, and we expect it to only grow. We expect new supporters to come. We expect literally thousands of people that are able to donate thousands of dollars each. We expect to be interested in supporting the campaign, and we also expect to revitalize and reinvigorate the people that have been in the were involved in the 9/11 truth movement years ago, who kind of burned out or moved on. We expect those people to sort of come back and see new hope in this campaign. And so Rethink911 will continue without a doubt after this September. And we really think that will be the hub for, we hope that will become the hub for lots of 9/11 activism. And we will continually be thinking of new ways for people to get engaged and to spread the message in their local communities. But it'll be a brand, we're aiming for like global brand awareness of Rethink911.
I want to ask you, because you mentioned people being burned out and maybe not necessarily being as passionate as they were a couple of years ago. So I want to address those people who may be listening to this show and they're looking for that spark again, that energy to draw them to New York City. What would you say to those people about picking up the sword again and taking on this cause with as much fury and as much passion as they had a few years ago? What would you say to those people listening right now?
I would say that the public is becoming ever more open to the message. Every day we make progress, and now is the time. All the work that you may have done back in 2004, 2006, 2008, it all pays off, down the road. And now, with the Rethink911 campaign happening in September, we are going to take the next big step. And when we take that step, we're basically opening the window for everyone to become re-engaged. And it's new hope for the cause. And it really was only a matter of time and hard work. Because as 9/11 gets further away, people are more open to looking at it. And the reality of the matter is that it's still a part of our lives every day. We all know it. The trajectory of the United States, and the world turned very much on 9/11. And if you don't want to continue to live, if you don't want your kids to live and your grandchildren to live in a post 9/11 world, you have to stand up now. Now is the time. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, may be too late. This is the time to stand up.
Exactly, and I want to say this to the audience. The way I look at this from my perspective is that we don't really have a choice. We have to stand up. We have to speak out. Now, depending on your own situation in life, you may have to set your own pace and determine, which days you do something for 9/11 truth and which days you can't, but you need to keep this at the focus, at the forefront of your thoughts, and be as involved as you were however many years ago you woke up to this fact, okay? Because if you really think about this, and I said this a lot of times on the show, but this is what motivates me, this is what frightens me and keeps me going, keeps me doing this show every single week and doing all of the stuff that I do with AE 9/11 Truth and privately to expose this issue. If you let people get away with bringing down the biggest buildings in the country, again, the biggest buildings in America were brought down on a clear Tuesday morning, blue sky, right in front of everybody. Not just those two buildings, but also the 47-story World Trade Center Building 7, which was not hit by an airplane. If you let them get away with this, and lie about it, if you let the public fall to apathy and say, yeah, it was a controlled demolition, what are you going to do about it? That is the road to doom, and I've seen that, folks. Okay, I've lived overseas. I was in the Peace Corps for a year and a half. We had to come back because of a massacre that occurred in the city of Andijan, all right, where the soldiers killed thousands of people, according to certain reports. Of course, their own government reports were less than, and I watched the people in that country get told by their president, one of the biggest human rights violators in the world, that it was only a few hundred people. They were mostly terrorists, and go about your day, go about your existence. And people would joke about it. People would joke about the tyranny. It was like a part of everyday life. It became funny. That was a sign that they'd given up. And I said, thank God I'm from a country where we don't do that. This is before I woke up to 9/11 truth. I said, thank God I'm from a country where people care about stuff, where people don't fall to apathy, where they don't let something horrible like this kind of system that we're in here in Uzbekistan, where we don't let that take hold of us. And lo and behold, the irony of the situation, I came home, and what I'm seeing take place in America now is what I saw happen there overseas in Uzbekistan, but on a bigger scale, on a more even just almost Twilight Zone scale. And I guess I've had to grow up and realizing what, the reality of human psychology and that, we're not above that to some extent, but I think we are above that. There's still a piece of me that says we are above that and that we are a sleeping giant that is ready to wake up. So, if you're burned out, get up, get over it. All right, it's little. No one's asking you to write something in the sky. It's just small actions every day. I heard this in a radio show during World War II when they were it was propaganda mixed into the radio program, but it was nice sentiment. It was it was millions of trivial things done well every day is going to win this war for us. That was the line, and I remembered that. I wrote it down because. How true is that for this movement? It's the millions of trivial things done around the country, around the world, for this movement that is going to win it for us. All right, just sharing a link on Facebook for Rethink911. It's a small thing, but it's a big step. It's a big step for this cause, for getting the message out there. Okay, so it doesn't really require a lot, but you just have to be in the game. Because, again, it's not going to happen unless you make it happen. We literally have to twist the arms of our media and our politicians behind their backs and hold them and make them say uncle for them to acknowledge us, because they don't want to. They're afraid. You've seen the clips of the politicians on C-SPAN stumbling and bumbling, tripping over themselves, not wanting to talk about this. These people have sold us out. So we are the real leaders. If you care, you are the real leader of America, the real representative of our republic, and you need to stand up and speak out and do whatever you can to keep yourself engaged and interested in this topic. Keep that passion that you had years ago, because there will be victory. What we do now, just as our guest said a few moments ago, what you did years ago is now yielding fruit, and what you do now will yield fruit, even bigger fruit, later on. So, I see it as we don't have a choice but to stand up and speak out. And I want to ask you, Ted, you talked about learning lessons and in what you've done with NYC CAN and Building 7 and all of your great work. What is your critique of the 9/11 truth movement? What can we be doing better in this movement to get the message out? Where do we fall short? Where do we excel?
That's a great question, Andy. I think we excel in doing good research. We excel in being objective and trying to understand what happened on that day. And there has been a tremendous amount of progress that's been made in the last 10 years as far as understanding what happened and gathering evidence and deciding what evidence is good evidence and what evidence is not good evidence. And so we've already built a foundation that the public and the authorities can use when the opportunity for a proper investigation comes about. The challenge for us is in communicating to the public that's not already familiar with the issue or that is still uncomfortable with the issue, to communicate the facts in a way that they will digest it. And as we have determined that the best route to doing that is to start with Building 7. did you know a third tower fell on 9/11? 9 out of 10 people will say no. And as soon as they say no, the door is open, and most people are curious about it. Most people say, why did I not know that a third building fell on 9/11? How did the media not tell me that? Why does nobody talk about this? And people's curiosity is aroused. And so it's about focusing on Building 7. It's about promoting the 2,000 architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. That is another core message in our campaign, is the sheer number of experts who are speaking out now. And that's on all of our advertising, so that when the media starts to report on this, they can't just say, oh, it's the crazy 9/11 truthers. They have to say, oh, wait, it's 2,000 architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth who are calling for a new investigation. And that's going to be an inconvenient truth for the media to deal with this September. So it's about those key things. Focus on Building 7, focus on the architects and engineers, and focus on the evidence. And, try to focus on what you know and be honest about what you don't know. When you're speculating, when you're talking in a group of people and you're speculating, qualify that you're speculating on certain things that you don't know, but speak affirmatively about the things that you do know. And there's a lot of things that we do know about 9/11.
Yeah, 105 feet of acknowledged freefall by NIST. That's a fact, folks. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a fact. And so you state that confidently, you get that out there into people's ears. And I agree with you that focusing on Building 7 is the way to go. And I've seen people try to talk about this, and I understand it to an extent. If you've been doing it for a few years, you should know better and learn from it. But when you first wake up to this and other topics, there's a tendency to kind of jump around in 9/11 and then go into some other topic, event that's in question, and then go into, who you think was responsible. And I can see people who are getting this message given to them by the activists, their eyes just sort of glaze over, and it's too much information, folks. Okay, you don't see a beautiful woman at a bar and come up to her and say, come home with me, let's get married, let's have babies. All right, no, you play it cool and you work it slowly. Okay, well, the same goes with this movement too. Okay, a lot of people, their brains haven't been exposed to the idea that this could even be considered a possibility. All right, their paradigm hasn't been expanded enough to include this. So you've got to play it cool, and you got to just focus on what you can absolutely prove, and that's why Building 7 is so important. I mean, it's the smoking gun of 9/11. Again, 105 feet of free fall acceleration on Building 7. Okay, 8 stories disappearing from the destruction of the building. All right, how can you explain that? Why won't they test the Twin Tower dust samples for explosives? Very obvious, reasonable questions that the powers that be don't want to address, and when people see that, it wakes them up. All right, folks, so again, I agree completely with our guest. This is where your focus needs to be, and this is where you need to be hitting everybody hard, is with the facts and the hard evidence through AE 9/11 Truth and the evidence that they present. Now, Ted, we're running short on time, only a couple of minutes left. Do you have any final thoughts, things you want to share with our audience, something you want to encourage them to do in the next couple of months in the build-up to Rethink 9/11?
Well, absolutely, Andy. First of all, I want to just really, really urge people to donate what they can by August 1st so that we can reach our target and place all of the ads that we want to place. I know that it's easy to think that other people will pick up the slack and will donate, but that's really not the case. It's a collective action problem that we all need to overcome together. And so go to rethink911.org. It'll take you 2 minutes. You can pick the city that you want to donate to. You can donate to New York City. You can donate to Boston. You can donate to San Francisco. You can donate to Vancouver. You've got 11 cities to choose from, or you can just donate to the overall campaign, and we'll put the money where it's most needed. But you get to decide where your money goes. And then I would say spend the month of August getting familiar with the campaign and figuring out how you want to be active in September. And let's all go out together and change the course of history in September.
You will be a part of history, folks. You want to be telling your grandkids that you helped put that billboard in Times Square. And the great thing about this is that you get to use your own creativity. You get to get the information out in the way that you think is the best, through your own local efforts. And I think that's really great, and that's really how movements flourish, is when you let people be their own leaders, and that is what this movement is allowing you to do. This really is the grassroots, because this relies so much on you out there, the people that actually care about this issue. We're not going to get help from the media, like I said, unless we twist their arms behind their back, unless we twist politicians' arms behind their backs. We're not going to get that real investigation. That's just the way it is. That's the situation we're in. Okay, and that's something that we just have to face and acknowledge. But we don't run from it. We don't say, oh, well, what are you going to do? Because, again, we don't have any choice. Okay, because if they did that on September 11th, 2001, if they brought those buildings down that morning with all of those lives inside, what are they going to do next? And do you really want to be living in a country that protects a lie like this? All right, what has it gotten you in the last 11 years, 12 years coming up now? What has it gotten you? Do you really want to live in this anymore? So you need to get behind this effort. You need to listen to what Ted's telling you right now, and go to rethink911.org and do whatever you can do. Contribute whatever you can contribute, because it will go a long way, and you will be making the world a better place for your kids and for everybody's kids as well. Ted, I want to thank you for coming on 9/11 Freefall. We are out of time. Remember, folks, you can listen to this program every Thursday night on No Lies Radio at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. This is Andy Steele saying have a great week and good luck.
11 years after 9/11, experts are speaking out about what really destroyed the Twin Towers and Building 7.
They're talking about a single columnar collapse or failure that resulted in a total collapse of the building.
Building number 7 descended in free fall for the first 100 feet, which means that there was absolutely no resistance to the descent whatsoever.
So all of the columns really needed to be severed at the same time.
The symmetry is the smoking gun.
NIST has admitted it went into free fall for 8 stories.
You don't need to be an engineer or an architect to see what happened to those buildings.
Dit is controlled demolition. Zeker weten. Zeker weten.
What I saw, it was a classic implosion. The center of the core, the penthouse area, starts to move first, and then the building follows along with it.
NIST excluded the document from FEMA in Appendix C that documented the evidence of melting steel.
More than 1,500 architects and engineers and 12,000 others, including many scientists, have signed the petition calling for a scientific investigation of the destruction of the Twin Towers and World Trade Center Building 7. The report, issued by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, referred to as NIST, was not valid science.
Go to 911expertspeakout.org.